The other day I was sitting on my couch, scrolling on my phone, and I saw a trailer for a brand new Metro game. Which means now I have an excuse, much to the dismay of my wife and children, to replay the entire series again. Today's subject is a very special game to me, Metro 2033, Redux. I first played the original Metro 2033 about 15 years ago at a buddy's house. I still vividly remember watching him struggle through D6 and those damn amoebas. But through all of it, I remember most fondly him trying to explain the story to me. We were like 12 years old, and our collective interpretation of the game then was so totally different from my current understanding of it, for obvious reasons, sure. But reminiscing on that first playthrough made me want to analyze this game's themes and writing, as well as its stellar atmosphere and tone. But to be perfectly honest with y'all, I really just like talking about this stuff. I played through the series several times now as an adult, but it's been about a year since I last finished a run of all 3 games. I'm stoked to prepare for the new title by diving back into the dark and war-torn tunnels of the Metro. The pillars that make this first entry iconic are undoubtedly its atmosphere and story. I think another point of intrigue for the Metro series was the game's development history. Don't worry, I won't dive into that for the sake of this video. There are several other creators on this platform that have done an excellent job covering the game's tumultuous development, as well as its similarities and differences to the source material, the Metro novels written by Dmitry Glukhovsky, and its relationship with its estranged half-sibling, the Stalker franchise. I'll link a few of these creators in the video description for you to check out, but I felt I needed to at least acknowledge that aspect of this series. Let's start with a brief bit of context that I'm sure a majority of you don't need, before getting into some of the more analytical, opinion-based stuff. Metro 2033 is a 2010 action-horror first-person shooter, set in Moscow after a nuclear apocalypse that, in-universe, took place in the year 2013. Some small portion of humanity fled to the vast system of underground metro tunnels below the surface and have been living there for the last 20 years. The surface is a hostile, irradiated land, but the air in the tunnels is usable in most places, and as above, so below, there are mutated creatures, formerly rodents and other animals, now turned bloodthirsty monsters by intense radiation, and maybe a little pre-war bioweapon engineering. It is a constant battle for resources amongst the many factions of the Metro, and warring bloodshed amongst humans and beasts alike is an everyday part of life. We play as a young man named Artyom. Artyom lives in a station called Exhibition that lies on the outskirts of the Metro. While the majority of the larger and more bustling factions are a little bit more insulated from the harsh outside world, some of these more impoverished satellite stations are in a constant state of attack by mutants and bandits, and many have already collapsed. Artyom is an orphan and was raised by his adopted father, Alex. The inciting incident that kicks the game's narrative into gear is the arrival of a ranger named Hunter to Exhibition. Hunter is a part of a warrior faction known as the Spartan Order, but we can get into that a little bit more later. For now, just know that these guys are like an entire faction of Special Forces dudes. Artyom's adopted father Alex and Hunter are good friends, and we silently listen to them address the newest threat to their lives in Artyom's station, the Dark Ones, a new and mysteriously powerful type of mutant. Some things happen, plans go awry as they often do, and Artyom is tasked with traveling to Polis Station, deep into the Metro, to recruit the help of the rest of Hunter's Spartan Order to save his home from the Dark Ones.
Perimeter. I must go recon the situation. Listen carefully, Artyom. If I'm not back here by morning, you must get to Polis Station and find a man named Miller. Tell him what's happened to me, and what's stirring in the northern tunnels. Show this to Miller so he knows I've sent you. I trust everything to you, Artyom. Don't let me down. If we are to survive, this threat must be eliminated, no matter the cost. Eliminated. Understand?
That's the Spark Notes version of the story, the elevator pitch, so to speak. For this video, I won't be doing a play-by-play per se, but I will need to talk about the game's major events to analyze its story and its atmosphere. Normally, I would divide this essay into segments regarding each of the aforementioned topics, but as I wrote this, I realized how skillfully intertwined and dependent on each other all of those pillars I mentioned earlier are. The atmosphere serves the setting and the story and the characters and the gameplay. It's all just very well done. But I gotta get started somewhere, so here goes. This game is dark, but because of the Redux version, it's no longer pitch black per se. And it should be dark. We're in irradiated metro lines below Moscow, in the middle of a perpetual nuclear winter, surrounded by mutants, communists, and Nazis. Themes in this game are represented as visually as they are narratively. The setting serves the gameplay as well in the sense that resources are extremely valuable. Stealth and exploration are encouraged through challenging encounters. This pushes the player to look around and to scavenge. You need air filters and a gas mask to breathe the toxic air on the surface and some of the air in the tunnels. You'll need bullets for obvious reasons, and you need fancy military bullets for currency, like Fallout bottle caps, but less arbitrary. There are a surprising variety of throwables, like grenades and knives, and the best way to get better equipment is to take chances and go and look for it. This means that the player will have to pay close attention to their environment. Is that door locked? Only one way to find out. I see a body over in the distance with some kind of rifle propped up next to it. Time to check it out. A candle faintly glows in a windowsill amidst the white and gray torrent of radioactive snow on the surface. I bet someone was there and left some goodies behind. Now, the game is linear, but within each A to B level, there are sometimes hidden exploration options and larger arena-type layouts with multiple places to go and paths to take. And because we are encouraged to examine the playable space so closely, we as players get to see the amount of detail and care that was given to this world from the developers. Spaces are crowded and bustling with life when they should be, and at other points they're completely empty. There may be a large section of tunnel with only a few bullets tucked away for loot somewhere and no enemies to speak of. But while we're exploring off the obvious beaten path, we feel that at any moment the game could throw an ambush at us, or a jump scare. But it's when that doesn't happen that the tension and immersion are the highest. When the environment is so detailed and fleshed out that the meta-gamers amongst us might think, well, surely they wouldn't have bothered rendering all of this space without putting any combat here. But this thought quickly turns into a silent reverence. Perhaps you found a lone body in a particularly unfortunate state of decay just outside the station blast doors. Or perhaps you found several bodies on a train along with mutant corpses that tell an entire story all on their own and only offer up a few air filters or shotgun shells as a reward. Or maybe on the destroyed surface above the tunnels you happen upon a mutant cowering in a corner, trying to protect its young from us, the player. I love these quiet moments of environmental storytelling, where the game encourages you to take in a deep and immersive breath and just soak in the vibes. It's then that a smile creeps over my face and I realize that some developer took the time to put these entirely non-combat exploration encounters here as a reward for the especially engaged player. Then you see a fucking ghost or otherworldly figure, and all of that dope apocalyptic liminal comfort shit gets thrown right out of the window. Yeah, the metro is haunted. Early in the game, we are briefly shown some supernatural shit, and it can be a lot to make sense of. In the first real level of the game, shortly after Artyom begins his journey, the game shows us visions of dark ones, ghosts, and an anomaly encounter. This is followed by several action horror monster shootouts, and tensions are at an all-time high here. We as first-time players don't know what the hell is going on or what to expect. We barely made it to our first stop at Riga Station, and the relief I felt was palpable. Being surrounded by chatting NPCs and getting to see and hear how these survivors live their everyday lives added so much depth to the atmosphere of Metro's world. It's here where we also meet a shady guy named Bourbon who offers to pay Artyom and to escort him through the tunnels. We then embark on a follow the NPC action stealth segment with Bourbon as our guide, dispatching bandits and monsters with throwing knives, grenades, and suppressed guns, and we kind of settle our expectations a bit. Maybe all that ghost stuff and anomaly stuff at the beginning was just flavor meant to scare me and intrigue me early on, you know? Maybe these Eastern European guys all just like the novel Roadside Picnic a lot. I can see that this is a pretty standard horror shooter thing. I got this. Then when you're looking out for bad guys and monsters, the game reminds you of the things your bullets won't destroy. I'll get more into this during the discussion of the con chapter, but this was such an intriguing concept for me. I had played shooter games and horror games before, and even some horror shooter games, but Metro was so unique. It had it all. monsters, mutants, apocalyptic Cold War gone hot aesthetics, allusions to great wars of history, and things that go beyond science fiction and land firmly in the supernatural realm. But the part that firmly locked me in as a Metro fan for life was when Bourbon led us up and onto the surface. Artyom's first trip to the surface is likely the most remembered and beloved part of Metro 2033. I was certainly awestruck the first time I played it and always try to take extra time to look around. No matter how many times I've played this level over the years, I always seem to feel a new sense of adventure and a little fear. It's admittedly a small level by today's massive open world standards, but to me that means that this level offers an especially crafted and concentrated experience. There is minor openness in some spots, however, and the destroyed geometry of the surface is believably confusing, which will slow the player down. Sometimes I find a loot stash I hadn't noticed before, or an alternate path through the basement of a building. Sometimes I take special care to just look and listen. It's pure liminal bliss, mixed with tense action horror. The howls of the watchmen and the beating wings of the flying demons keep you on edge, while the faint creaking of a metal gate in the distance, mixed perfectly over the sound of rushing wind, keeps you on edge, yet curious. I also noticed on the first playthrough that I was somewhat relieved to be on the surface. The people of the Metro fear the surface for obvious reasons, the radiation and monsters being chief among them. But in the context of a dark and claustrophobic horror shooter, I felt a sense of wonder and excitement. I felt in real time what Artyom did as well, adventure and excitement as well as fear, which is a cool feeling in a game or book, when your emotional experience aligns with a character, despite it maybe being abnormal in the context of the wider universe. Like a bright-eyed young soldier excited to be sent to the front only to realize the horrors that await them. Well, even with all the monsters and stuff, at least up here it isn't so dark, and there aren't any ghosts or anomalies wandering around. Oh, that's fantastic. The Dark Ones follow Artyom throughout this entire level, and if you know where to look, you can spot them. They give Artyom visions of the past, a pre-war past he never got to live in or even see. If you pay attention in this level, then the choices that come later and the overall mystery of the Dark Ones is pretty deducible. I've yet to experience another game that can make me feel the way I feel when I play this particular level, however. It's up there in the Hall of Fame of video game levels right next to 343 Guilty Spark in Halo and the introduction to Rapture in Bioshock. Shortly after the Bourbon chapter, rest in peace Bourbon,
Artyom! Who the fuck?
is the Khan chapter, which is another favorite of mine. Khan is this kind of shaman spirit guide guy who spends his entire chapter educating Artyom about the supernatural without completely explaining it, and I love how all of this is framed as more of an introduction than a lore dump. Khan doesn't say, well, the anomalies are mutated space pim particles from another dimension brought into our world by the destruction of the bombs, warping our reality, yada yada yada. He instead tells Artyom about them plainly and compares them to a force of nature, like an element or fire. Something that just exists in the world. I love it when writers don't feel the need to explain every little detail. It would be like explaining something like a car to a child. Would you attempt to break down combustion engines and fluid injections and transmissions, or would you say something like, it's a vehicle used to get from one place to another, with 4 wheels and a horn that goes beep? Khan's whole ethos is about how things aren't inherently good or evil, they just simply are, and that we as humans assign meaning to things where sometimes the truth is far simpler. He cautions Artyom about his morality, which can seem very tutorializing, but when framed against all this supernatural stuff he's showing us, it comes off as a warning, as though our actions are being judged by the Metro itself, as if it were a living creature or perhaps an entity, capable of dishing out punishment if it sees fit. I may be reading into that a little bit, but it's because the world of Metro is so rich and interesting that I can even theory craft like that at all. One of my favorite lines in the game is when Khan explains his theory for what the ghosts actually are, and for what the Metro has become.
It appears that the devastation we brought upon ourselves was complete. Heaven, hell, and purgatory were atomized as well. So when a soul leaves the body, it has nowhere to go and must remain here, in the Metro. A harsh, but not undeserved atonement for our sins, wouldn't you agree?
It's specific yet vague and poetic with horrifying implications, yet the way he said it is somewhat reverent, and Artyom's own visions, especially on a second playthrough, seem to support Khan's theories about the Metro being a supernatural plane just as much as it is a physical one, and that the actions of man are responsible for it. Yet at no point does the game directly confirm this. It just shows us ghosts and otherworldly psychic mutants and anomalies and goes, have fun, while proposing possible interpretations through character dialogue. The novels may be different, but we're just looking at the games in this video. This morality stuff from Khan stands in opposition to Artyom's goal, however. And Khan is very much a foil to Hunter, the ranger from the beginning, Artyom's childhood role model. This is all foreshadowing the game's morality system and the good or bad ending, but I'll get back to that a bit later. I bring up Khan's chapter because once this can of worms is opened, the game never forgets about it. It isn't like, okay, that was the ghost chapter. No, this supernatural stuff waxes and wanes throughout the rest of the game as well, though admittedly not as much. I love the timing of this chapter as well. At this point in the game, we have seen a lot of supernatural and impossible to explain stuff, and Khan gives us a little reassurance. Maybe the dark world of Metro isn't so dark if you just try and accept it instead of understanding it. After the Khan chapters, Artyom fights his way through the Fourth Reich and the Communists in a very tense and action-stealth-packed sequence of chapters. There is some seriously fun scavenger stalker-style gameplay here and tons of atmospheric storytelling and a few opportunities to earn some morality points. But for the sake of time, we'll move forward. Artyom makes it to Polis and gives Hunter's message to the rest of the Rangers. The council members surprisingly turn down support for Hunter and Artyom's mission, but a man named Colonel Miller takes heed of Artyom's warning and goes against the council to aid him in secret. He and his band of Spartans fear the Dark Ones as much as Hunter did. Remember Hunter's advice to Artyom: if it's hostile, you kill it. The team pursue the legendary D6 bunker, where pre-war munitions are supposedly stored. No one has ever found it, despite the Spartans trying their best. The directions for D6 are supposedly locked away in a massive state library archive on the surface, where the pre-war government kept their important documents. The issue is, something guards the library, and no Spartan has been able to complete the journey uninjured or unalived. People die when they go there, okay? Miller, Artyom, and another Spartan named Danila make their way to the library. Danila is attacked by a giant flying demon, as they are called, and is injured. Miller decides to take Danila back to the station and send a 20-year-old man-boy with a wind chime stuffed with 12-gauge buckshot stick-welded onto a piece of plumbing into the perilous library that no trained Spartan warrior has ever returned from. Okay, sounds good. Artyom ain't no bitch though, and he goes in solo. This level holds 0 punches, and the Fade from Black loading screen puts Artyom immediately face to butt with one of these librarians. These creatures are massive, human ape-like mutants and are hostile. They, unlike other mutants, are very intelligent, however. In the books, this is greatly expanded upon, I believe, but to the point where the librarians are capable of mimicking human speech. But in the game, they do not do this, which is a shame. The gimmick here is that the creatures generally won't attack you if you maintain eye contact with them, which is the opposite for most mammalian dominance-related hierarchies in our world. This is where the increased intelligence thing comes into play. If they were a dumb animal, violence would likely be on sight, or if their dominance was challenged at least, similar to a gorilla. But these things seem curious. They will investigate Artyom, tilt their heads inquisitively, and sometimes leave you alone, or bluff with a threatening roar, as though they evaluated whether or not engaging you would be worth the risk, or perhaps they saw you as some kind of kindred spirit. None of this is explained to the player other than how they work mechanically, which is so brilliant. Artyom has to make his way through a crumbling office building that is infested with these librarians. This part of the game is tense on every playthrough and is right up there with Artyom's first excursion to the surface in terms of breathtaking design. I think when most people remember this game, they remember the first few levels, the first trip to the surface, the library, the bunker, and the tower. All of these are iconic set pieces, but I most enjoy the outside bits, and I most fondly remember the library. It's cold and dark in the library. Artyom is on a timer because of his gas mask, and the deeper into the library you get, the more these librarians seem inclined to pick a fight with us. In the first room, there's plenty of space for Artyom to back up while following the rule of eye contact, so to speak. But in the next few floors and chambers, it seems as though these librarians are setting up ambushes that will force Artyom to break the rules, which is so freaking interesting to me. Like, what compels these hulking monstrosities to follow this eye contact thing to the point where they will try to back Artyom into a hole in the floor, thus giving the librarian waiting below the green light to attack the guy no longer making eye contact with it? While I understand this could be over-scrutiny on my behalf, it makes me wonder how this scene played out in the book. It makes me want an explanation. It makes me want to open up a Wikia article from 2010 and read some speculations, which to me at least means this is good horror design and good monster design. Unfortunately, this area can be a bit frustrating for the same reasons I mentioned above. It can seem like Artyom is playing by the rules, and a librarian can just decide that his time has come and go full monkey mode. I wonder how much of this behavior is intentional or not. In a way, this makes the librarian seem more realistic, behaving more unpredictably like an animal, rather than the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Don't get me wrong, this is by far the most tense part of the game, for me at least, but it was also the only spot of the game where I will almost certainly take a death or two, and that can feel a bit random. Maybe I'm just bad at it though. The atmosphere and world building of the game is so immersive, however, that I can certainly suspend my disbelief and assume that the ultra-intelligent killer mutant monkey human hybrid thing just got tired of my presence and decided to remove me, even if sometimes it does feel like the librarians cheat a bit. Nonetheless, the library is my favorite location because of how unique an experience it is to the rest of Metro 2033's gameplay offerings. My favorite parts of the game are the parts where Artyom is left to his own devices, on the surface or in some lonely ghost-ridden tunnel. The sound of the labored gas mask breathing, the harrowing radioactive wind rushing through the abandoned buildings, strange animal calls, deep bellowing, growling, and roaring. In 90% of the game, I can solve any survival horror situation with a well-placed round of 12-gauge buckshot. That is not the case with the library. Yes, you can kill the librarians, but good luck, because you might be able to kill the first one, but the second one will most likely get you. I hope that long-winded and borderline incoherent tangent was enough to communicate that the atmosphere and vibes of this game are by far its strongest features. I think it's more than just a strong feature, it's the main course of the meal. Horror games and horror media in general work best when the setting and plot are symbiotic. The Ishimura is the perfect setting for the marker to turn it into an alien hellscape. The Nostromo is the perfect place for the alien to stalk the crew one by one. The dark blood-soaked trenches and bunkers of Front Lines World War I is a suitable place for a man to become a beast. And for some reason, a Cold War-inspired apocalypse meshes well with the esoteric Eastern European science fiction and horror that commentates thematically on history being doomed to repeat itself unless we as individuals make a change in our beliefs and worldviews. This game has been referred to as Artyom's Odyssey by many people, and I think this is a fitting description. An odyssey can be defined as a long, adventurous journey marked by changes of fortune, challenges, and significant personal discovery, according to Webster. I think the significant personal discovery bit of that definition is what Metro 2033 excels at the most narratively. Metro is not morally gray. We as players can behave in morally gray ways if we choose to, and there is some incentive for this, usually in the form of money or supplies being hidden behind choices that make RTM seem cruel or selfish. The game outright tells you the twist, so to speak, pretty early on if you're paying attention or have the volume on. People have been critical of the con chapter for betraying the morality system to RTM in such a black and white fashion. I think people who make this criticism are missing the forest through the trees in a way. Years have gone by, and there is something to be said about retrospectives reframing the original experience players had when they initially played a game. For the time the game came out, I believe Metro's morality system was successful, and not nearly as black and white as, say, like the Paragon or Renegade system from the Mass Effect series, where a big red or blue button would pop up on the screen giving you the option to be bad or good, Shepard, during the dialogue. I'm not being critical of Mass Effect here, that game series mostly rules. It was just the most relevant thing I could think of while writing this. One thing Metro does to curtail this dishonored style of morality system, another fantastic game I plan to cover one day, is that we as players don't really learn about the system's existence till a third of the way through. Even then, there isn't like a UI notification on the screen that goes, "Your actions have consequences, listen for the water in the pipe sound when you do good stuff." Con just says that you will reap what you sow, and that's that. There are numbers being tallied behind the screen, but we don't see those numbers as players. Most players were probably just slaying their way through the game up until the con chapter, then we go, oh, maybe that's a hint, and I should change my ways. Hell, on my first playthrough, I doubt I even realized there was a morality system. I didn't learn the game had a second ending until like a month or two after I first played it. But that was a different time, when information about games spread by word of mouth amongst friends and Game Informer magazine subscriptions, and the big thing we had to worry about were grades, games, girls, and sports. Geez, what a time. Anyway, I think this is introduced well narratively, as it seems organic. We make mistakes, and sometimes we just need to be reminded by someone that we should have learned from them. And if we don't, then bad things may happen as a result of our own actions. And if Khan is right, then maybe there are forces beyond us that keep track of these things. Forces we end up empowering or weakening through our choices. That being said, I'm not sure why we get positive moral points for strumming a guitar or listening to seemingly unimportant dialogue at times, but it isn't a perfect system, and the sequels do a good job of cleaning this up a bit. With that being said, and to get back to the story, Artyom and his band of merry men go deep into the underground bunker of D6. The second to last level of the game is honestly kind of a disappointment. 11-year-old me thought it was scary and cool and challenging. Grown-up me thinks it's a bit of a frustrating slog with a disappointing boss fight. I don't know if you could even call it that, but we do get some good character moments with Colonel Miller, who does become a franchise staple, so that's good. There's a lot of fun body horror to be had here. The game just kind of doesn't do anything with it. Apparently in the novel, the biomass we encounter is much more prominently featured and isn't in D6, but the Kremlin. But here it's woefully underutilized. Our team and the boys get the missiles and the targeting system. Now they must climb to the top of the Ostenkino Tower to place the targeting beacon and aim it at the Dark One's home. This is a real-life structure in Russia, by the way. Look it up, they did a great job representing it and the view from it. We replay the game's intro and see what happens after. The lead up to the tower, while suffering from the 2010s trend of follow the NPC in the shooter game or get killed, this is a pretty great set piece. It's early morning just before dawn. The wind and the beasts howl, herds of watchmen and swarms of demons run and fly about in the torrent. The land is chaotic, primordial even. Miller and Artyom survive the initial assault and make it to the tower. I was watching a YouTuber called Bunker Dweller cover this game not long ago, and he mentioned that this game is full of religious illusion. I concur, but I also didn't want to sound as though I was just ripping him off in this video, so I haven't really brought it up until now. Please go check out his video. It's a really fantastic watch. But he mentions that the Ostenkino Tower is representative of the Tower of Babel from the Bible. Humanity and the Dark Ones cannot understand each other, so there is confusion and fear and violence. If they learned how to communicate, perhaps they could have reached a new plane, so to speak. This is just great symbolic writing, and I love when stories appeal to this sort of thing, be it historical period, fable, myth, or religion. It adds to the whole Odyssey vibe, and adds a kind of mortal weight to Artyom's actions. It's at the top of this tower that Metro 2033 lays all of its moral turmoil to bear, and Artyom, our hero, our Odysseus, must make a choice. The Dark Ones, in one final attempt to save themselves, try to stop Artyom with psychic attacks, begging him to see the truth.
Artyom, this signal is just perfect. Hold on for just 1 more minute and we'll get them.
He's coming to destroy us. Why? He cannot be allowed. They always do. They never change. You will be stopped.
And if he fails, he falls from the tower. If he succeeds in resisting the Dark One's psychic powers, Artyom shoots and kills one of the Dark Ones who went to the tower to stop him while under the effects of their visions. Here is where the moral points are tallied. If you are an alright guy, you get a chance to shoot the targeting laser off the tower, preventing the missile strike. Conversely, if you are a bit cheeky-breeky, Artyom does nothing and allows the missiles to fall on the Dark One's home, which is conveniently right over there, a giant glowing black and orange hive thing, thus annihilating them. Shockingly, and I think this is actually brilliant, the bad ending is the canon ending, and this is something that I think more Eastern European games tend to do versus their American or Western counterparts, which I really admire. Artyom in the first game is 20 years old. In the sequel they retcon this to be 24, which okay, sure, but I think the bad ending is the more impactful and realistic one. And I think the story is stronger if Artyom is younger and impressionable. A long, adventurous journey marked by changes of fortune, challenges, and significant personal discovery. This isn't the end of Artyom's story, but the beginning. Artyom doesn't become a man or a hero when he realizes he has the power to shoot people, monsters, to scavenge and dominate the wasteland with cunning brutality and strength and wit. He becomes a man when he realizes his actions have consequences, and that his choices shape the world he and the future of humanity will inherit. Here, after committing a genocide, he realizes that he has simply perpetuated the war and the rage of the world before and below him, and pushed it onto another species just because they were different. This game's story is timeless because violence and war and greed are timeless. There will always be some ruler or politician or government that sends young men to die. There will always be an enemy that, no matter how similar they may be, will be just different enough to justify hatred and murder, and there will always be excited, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Artyoms to go out and exercise their will. If it's hostile, you kill it. But is there redemption? Beyond the traditional spirituality and religious answers, what can those young Artyoms do? Is it completely bleak and dystopian and hopeless? Dark and filled with monsters and gore like the tunnels of the metro? No, it isn't. We can learn. We can change. Artyom can learn. And Artyom can change. Humanity can change. We admit we were wrong, and we choose to be different. We choose to swallow our pride and keep trying to make it better, regardless of how humiliating it may be to admit we were the ones at fault. But that also means we have to face the consequences of our actions. That is what Metro 2033 is all about. Metro is a beating heart, buggy and lacking polish in a few areas, but a beating heart nonetheless. It spawned a great franchise and had a huge impact on me as a child, and an even bigger impact on me as a young man. Its sequels continue its hopeful yet perilous message, and its direct sequel, Last Light, serves as a perfect turning point, a Halo 2 sort of situation, if you will, before the incredible yet bittersweet third act. I hope you decide to play this series if you haven't. If you're excited for the new game or just want to talk Metro, leave a comment and let's discuss it. Thank you all for watching.